All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Credits and Chords. I'm your host, Practical, and I am joined by my three bros.
Danny boy.
This is your boy Rex.
Hey guys, it's Brandon.
And we're going to talk about a social and political director, Spike Lee. It's a perfect episode to kind of close off Black History Month as well. I think it's rather fitting, so timing is always good for us, just like our Dr. Dre episode landed on his birthday. So that was also a nice little coincidence, and we're keeping the coincidences rolling.
Called getting formatted, people. We're just trying to keep you up to date.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Might be a little outdated. I don't know.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's go ahead and talk about Spike Lee, guys. I know everyone kind of had a mixed array of when they were able to watch these movies, and we try to get through as many of them as possible. So let's get into it. Let's talk Spike motherfucking Lee.
I feel like it would have been very hard for us to get, what has he got, the 32 credits of films.
Lots of commercials and music videos,
right.
but lots of movies too. He's got a lot of studio movies,
and there are going to be some ones that we missed that maybe people that are familiar with Spike Lee are going to be like, "Oh, what the hell? What were we talking about earlier? He Got Game."
Yeah, we missed that one.
We did miss that one, unfortunately, but we tackled some of the more important ones. I think that kind of solidified him as what he is as a filmmaker. To be honest, when we started this, I wasn't quite familiar with a lot of his stuff. I heard about it. I'd seen movies like BlacKkKlansman and little bits and pieces of Malcolm X, but not all the way through, just like history class and stuff like that. But he's definitely on my radar now. I mean, I have a little bit more of an appreciation for him. He does some things I really like, and he does some things I really dislike. But we'll get into that later. But no, I thought this was a fun couple watches. I know you guys are getting mad at me because I was doing my research super early, but I was
excited.
I was incapacitated last weekend, so I needed to do my homework before. So, what about you guys? What do you guys think of Mr. Lee?
I'm a big fan. That's why I chose him, and I was excited to kind of get your guys' feedback as first-time watchers for some of that stuff. I know Brandon is a lot more well-versed in him before we did this anyway. So I figured, that's kind of what it's going to be sometimes when we swap those directors around. And I think Spike Lee is fucking just the perfect one to go into because of what he does, I love political music and shit like that. And I also love when there are directors that will kind of touch on all those things. And I think Spike Lee is a vital force in, filmmaking and social critique that it's inspired a lot of change. So he's almost an activist in his own, which is pretty awesome. So that's why I really wanted to cover him, and I'm glad you got to see like probably 5-6 of his best movies if you managed to watch them all, the ones that we're going to cover.
Yeah, I mean, I was more familiar with Summer of Sam is one of my favorite movies of his, but recently I've seen BlacKkKlansman, and but I hadn't seen a lot of his movies in quite a while, so they were pretty fresh to watch a lot of them. And I mean, I was blown away by how much I really enjoyed almost all of his work, barring just one exception really, and it was still a good movie, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a director with a voice, and a very consistent voice, and whether you agree or disagree with the things he has to say, these are the things he believes in, and he has a right to believe them, and I love what he puts on screen. And some of his work has been really, really impactful I watched a lot of his stuff over the last weekend, and it was just really good. I liked a lot of it.
Hell yeah.
I outside of Inside Man, and I've heard of Malcolm X, I had no idea who Spike Lee was before this. So this was kind of a nice jumping in
showing.
Hey, you know what? I'm not afraid to admit it. But this was it was a sweet kind of jumping in. funny thing, I was talking to somebody at work about Summer of Sam, and they thought I was talking about that movie I Am Sam. The one, so I'm like talking to them about the movie, and like partway through, they're like, "What? I don't remember any of this in the movie. Like, I just remember him being kind of like, special needs and all that." And
kind of.
and that's what they were saying. I was like, "Oh no, not that one." But I actually really like Summer of Sam. Inside Man, I've always thought was a pretty sweet movie. Denzel Washington must be one of his favorite actors to work with. Quite a few of his movies that you guys picked, but he's sweet in all of them. Like Denzel Washington's the man.
I mean, that's just Denzel, man.
Yeah,
that
Denzel's the man. I love Denzel, but no, I think also his commentary on society and stuff like that in his movies is very prevalent, and it's kind of well done. Forgive me, I'm not super familiar, but what's the movie's name with the girl who's dating the three guys?
She's gotta
have it.
She's gotta have it. That was an interesting, like, just movie in general. It almost seems like an interview, but mixed with like, I don't know. It was a really cool take and a really interesting, introspective on that type of thing and how women are treated in that situation versus guys, and just this whole. I don't know. It was a really good movie. I'm gonna have to watch that in Summer of Sam again because they were really good, and I know if I watch them again, I'm gonna catch a lot more and maybe grasp a bit more. But yeah, I think this was a great director to pick, and I'm probably gonna watch some of his other movies, like finish Malcolm X for one.
Hell yeah, you got it, dude. Malcolm X is definitely
it's a long one.
Yeah, but it's one of his best, if not his best.
I mean, I think I mean, just to lay the gauntlet down, I think that's one of the better biopics I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one of the best, definitely, of all time. I don't think that can be disputed.
It's just uncompromising.
Yeah, and it shows that full spectrum of just him having to self-discover himself and get what he needed to do to become the activist that he became. And I love that we get to go through that whole journey about it. And I don't know, that's one of the great things about Spike Lee, because he's able to capture the time periods really well. We talk about that with kind of modern directors. We've mentioned that a few times, but he captures that feel perfectly. Obviously some of the time he's capturing that era, like in the era he's in, but even later he's really good at capturing all the historical aspects in Malcolm X. And I really I love shit like that anyway. So
the New York vibe is, he's got that down second to none.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I feel like nobody can really duplicate the way he captures it. Do the right thing, like that whole. I think I was telling the Bont this after I had watched it. It reminded me of Friday, but I'm sure the director of Friday. I always forget his name. You guys will have to forgive me.
F. Gary Gray.
Yes, I'm almost positive he had to take a little bit away from Spike with that, because I liked that whole setup of that movie being in kind of like one central street. It makes it more intriguing. You're seeing all the different cliques and stuff like that. So yeah, he captured that really, really well, I felt, with that movie. There's other movies that, and we'll talk about it, like Inside Man was just so out of his kind of,
weird
repertoire. It was a different take. He had his little quirks in there, like the scene of Denzel leaving the van to go inside the bank, and like it's almost like he's on a or like one of those Segway things, and he's just moving along, and like the camera's moving.
That's an iconic Spike Lee thing.
No, I know that. I know that. Like for that movie,
the Segway. I've never heard it put that way.
Yeah, like he's riding that little scooter kids have, but. It's interesting that he does things like that. He's not afraid to be a little bit bold and daring, so to speak. So
I mean, his head-on camera shot interview style is a consistent choice,
right,
throughout his entire career, and it's something I really, really love.
Yeah, it's cool. Inside Man was the first one I started with, since it was just on I think Peacock.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just watched that one right away, and going from there and back. It's definitely a trip. Inside Man is
Inside Man Out.
Is outside
Anger's in the bank.
It's just outside his norm. Like this one,
Hell yeah.
That's
This
awesome.
one just I didn't feel as much of like a political backing to this one. Like it was just a straight bank robbery movie with a twist. But
Yeah, because that Inside Man is more, and Bont and I have talked about this a bunch, but that's the start of his like studio director days. So he's not necessarily doing things where he's the driving force. He's kind of taking, he's reading scripts and he's like, all right, I'll do this movie, I'll adapt this movie or whatever, however it works. And he does a few movies like that during that time period, but there's still some good ones. There's still some gems during the 2000s era of Spike Lee. And Bont had actually texted me earlier and had let me know about The Five Bloods on Netflix, and that's
Yeah, I
one of
wanna
his more
watch that
recent
now.
movie. I watched about an hour of it, and it still felt like Spike Lee, which is good because I hadn't really felt that in a while. Starting with Inside Man, which is why I brought it up. It's like it's just a jarring change for what you're used to with him if you've been following him, since he first came out. So,
Right.
but yeah, I'm glad, Rex, that you got to experience some of that shit for the first time because that's again, I've talked about it in past episodes, but that's what this whole thing is about, and it's exciting. And I could hear the excitement in Bont's voice when we were on the Discord because I had it as well. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to talk about this shit. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So
no, it's
because
tight.
he is an exciting director too, and like if I can segue into at least Do the Right Thing real quick, like that movie is super important to me. It's always been my favorite movie by him. I love the array of characters that he displays throughout the movie, like, Radio Raheem and Bugging Out, and then Mookie himself. I mean, the pizza guys, the whole movie is just, it's really unique and it captures such a real life feeling to me. And I find it super relatable in a lot of ways, just in terms of the filmmaking decisions and shit. It's just easy to follow, and something big is going to happen by the end of the film just by the way it's constantly building with its subject matter. And I outright love that movie. And it's just one thing I've always wanted to say in a recording like this is like, it's the concept of no one wins when we hate the other side, and we have either fight the power, Malcolm X, or fight to empower, MLK. And that movie just perfectly personifies that shit. And yeah, I'm so glad I got that little segue on recording. I wrote that down perfectly so I could remember to say it.
Also,
Yeah.
what's his obsession with doing like New York, Brooklyn in the hottest time ever?
I mean,
apparently, in every
he
movie.
grew up in that time.
Mhm.
I
He
figured
was
that he's got quite a few movies where they're placed. I think she's
New
got to
York
have
City
it. Summer
summer,
of Sam,
man.
and this one right now is all in New York during like the heat wave of the 70s.
Well, and
I'm
I
correct.
don't know, man. You got to feel like you're on the ground level and you're surrounded by a bunch of concrete pillars. Like the bottom of that's probably got to be hot as fuck. I don't know. I have never been to New York, so I wouldn't know.
Either, so I thought there might have been something behind it because he fixed the setting, obviously,
in the summertime, and
I mean, but
it
there's
was Manhattan, but it was still very, very warm.
yeah. I mean, there's songs about it. Hot time, summer in the city. Na 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 na.
Hey,
nice. All right, we got our local karaoke right here.
Oh wow!
Hey, you know what? Smoke me.
I heard the voice of an angel.
Hell yeah.
Mm.
Well, I mean, let's start breaking it down, dudes. I mean, let's talk about like his style, his visual style, and his direction, and the approaches that he takes. I mean, we already talked about it a little bit, but like on the larger scale of things, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the way he structures his films? I guess you could
He's
say.
got balls. I'll start with that. What's that in the beginning of Malcolm X? Burning an American flag, like that's pretty ballsy. The end of Black Klansman, he has that upside down American flag, black and blue. That's pretty much like America's under attack kind of a thing.
Or beat up and bruised.
Right. So he's not afraid to talk about things, I think, that people have to kind of tiptoe around, and racism being a pretty predominant subject in a lot of his films. Sometimes people are cautious with that and want to tiptoe around it, but you gotta be real to really get these points across, these social, ideas that he has. You got to kind of make people uncomfortable. I remember watching Black Klansman, and there's that scene where Adam Driver comes chasing that guy outside on the driveway, and he, uses a big word, and hearing it is really kind of takes you back a little bit. And, you know, I'll never understand the, you know, the downfall of hearing someone call me that, because I will never experience that. But I just feel like as a white man watching that, it made me uncomfortable, you know, like, so I can only imagine them. So a good director can do that, can, you know, draw an emotion out of someone that might not normally have an emotion about a certain subject. So I appreciate him for that, for sure. As far as like his shooting and his stylization, he's really good with you know, the candid shots. Sometimes he'll have shots where it's like kind of like a stationary camera where it's like kind of in the corner, but it's not. But he wants you to see everything kind of happening in the frame. He doesn't want it to just be focal point just on the actors or whoever's in the screen. The one I was talking about earlier, the Inside Man, the guy on the Segway, like that's pretty iconic, you know. So he's got his trademark stuff that lets you know that it's a Spike Lee film. So I appreciate that. That's for sure.
Hell yeah. No, I agree. I agree with everything you said. I think he has a very visceral way of telling his story, and I always appreciate it. It's, you know, it's either really grainy or sometimes he'll use black and white, which is really effective, and I'm always a huge fan of integrating that into color shots too, and just the way he's able to do that. I'm always a big fan. One of my favorite camera techniques, and it's very common, but sometimes people do it a lot better than others, is the characters walking toward the screen, you know, and this, following them in a certain angle, to me is always really effective. And I think he's one of my favorites in that regard, because he does it in every movie, but he chooses different angles.
He kind of does, and, like the, you know, walk with me kind of a thing. You
exactly.
know, we don't want you to miss this. Yeah,
exactly.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's, you know, and I love that he's always in his own movies, even though, you know, he's not the best actor in the world, but he, and I know how you feel about that, Danny, but he's not the best actor, but, you know,
he's not the worst. He does get better in some of the ones we watched, but that first one was, I didn't care for him.
Well, it was his first movie, man. You know, he's not going to fucking knock it out of the back right away.
I understand that, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just letting you know my opinion. I didn't care for it, okay?
No, I get you. And like I said, no, you know, he's never knocking it out of the park with his acting ability, but I do always like the way he fits into his films. I think he does it in a nice way. But
probably why he uses Denzel. He's like, well, you know, I'm not gonna be able to do it, so let me just get like top dog up in here.
He's like, yo, man, let me play Malcolm X.
Sprinkle a little Giancarlo Esposito too. Man, that guy was sprinkled all over those movies.
Hell yeah!
I didn't realize I was his boy.
Bugging out, you?
Bugging out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of his visual style, I mean, just his style in general, I really enjoyed it. He's got a really cool camera style, visual style, and his editing techniques are cool. Very visceral, in the moment, kind of, you know, ground level filmmaking. You know, you're in there, you're in the moment, you're with Radio Raheem listening to Fight the Power. Like, the song came on like 7 times during that movie, and every time I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Or how about the scene from Malcolm X when he was a child and like those KKK guys came and threw the stuff, like, dude, you were like feeling for that poor family. They were just trying to go to bed, and like he was like, nope, I want to make you as uncomfortable and just make you realize like this is exactly what happened. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I'm a man.
He really puts well in that movie specifically. He really puts you in Malcolm's shoes.
Oh, for
and
sure.
There's a pretty there's like a good 10-15 minute stretch where they're going through his childhood, and he's like, I literally thought my name was Big Word for like part of my childhood.
Ugh,
and
horrible.
Like, yeah, that's such a like. Man, such a brutal movie in so many ways, but and that's what it is. Like, I think he's in the trenches, and you're really able to like see these people or these characters in these movies as people, and I think that's what makes them so effective. Because a lot of these stories I think are personal, and you know, I don't know how much he lived a lot of the story subject matter that he, you know, made.
He seemed pretty familiar with it, so
but he's familiar with it. He's studied, you know,
right?
So like, and I love that he's that voice for a subsect of American Americans and just people in general in this country and all over the world. It's good shit.
I think he is definitely underrated in a lot of ways, which is crazy. I mean, he gets his praise, but he should always be in the conversation for top 20 directors for me. But
Sure.
Rex, I'm curious though, as a first time viewer for a lot of this. So what was your take on it, watching these years down the line?
I liked them all. I liked his visual style. It's kind of rough and rugged, but it makes you kind of feel like he's down there with them. I don't know, like in the movie himself, makes you feel like you're kind of part of it. Like Summer of Sam, when they go into the punk club for the first time in that movie, and you see how dirty it is, and like the two guys are looking for I can't remember his name right now, but Adrian Brody's character, and they're looking for him, and it just reminds me of what a real punk show is. They're all disgusted because it smells. People look crazy, like it seemed like that wasn't even actors. Like he was like, "Hey, we're just gonna go into this punk show, and you guys are just gonna walk through, and we're gonna see how everybody reacts." It just felt that real, and it's
like a hell of a Friday night.
Yeah, John Leguizamo and Mira Sorvino wouldn't even set foot in that club.
Yeah, they were so like, let's just. Which the scene after that's even crazier.
Yeah. Plato's Retreat, baby. Let's go.
Like it was. His style is telling, and and She's Gotta Have It. I really like that it was like how you said it in black and white, but then in that one part where they're dancing and all that stuff, it comes to color, but then it goes back into black and white. I don't know. It was just, like you said, a great transition. Again, I'm not too familiar, so Inside Man really felt out of place. Like I didn't notice as much of like any of that in that movie. Like it was a good movie. I liked it personally, but just it wasn't a movie in the style I saw after. Like all these ones that he's done before, they all had this huge meaning, and just the way they were done and visually and stylistically were just great timepieces. And I don't know, he had a really cool style, and I haven't seen like Klansman and all that stuff, and I need to finish Malcolm X, but so I don't know how it goes from there, but those old ones are for sure like great pieces of work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was an iconic part of the 90s. That's when he really hit his peak. I mean, obviously he started a little before that, but he was doing music videos, and his directing credits are crazy, and he ended up being like a really, huge part of pop culture. And
Michael.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. We were just talking about that before the episode started, which was definitely a funny moment early on for him too. And
I'm sorry, I got that mixed up with another scene.
But he's got, he has a pretty good track record with movies in the theater too, on smaller budgets, which was one thing I was going to bring up before we got into his real impact. But to put it into perspective, Inside Man with a budget of 45 million brought in 158 million. So he does have that ability to be like a blockbuster type director, as well as still being able to step back and like you guys were saying, show us what it's like to be in those situations and take us along for that ride. And another good example is Malcolm X. Budget's only 35 million, which is crazy that it was less for Inside Man, and you look at the set pieces for that film and everything that went into it, and it's a little bit cheaper.
They filmed in Mecca. Do you know how crazy that is?
That's wild. Yeah. And one of the movies we didn't watch, Jungle Fever. I mean, I've seen it before, but we didn't talk about watching it for this run.
That's Samuel L. Jackson as a crackhead, right?
Yeah.
Man, I want to watch that movie.
Man, that would have been perfect.
Told me on that movie. What?
Jeez, I have to go back and watch that.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, hey, wait a second, I haven't seen that one.
I didn't even know he was going to do the right thing until he was talking on the radio. I was like, is this Jackson? What the hell?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that movie only had a $14 million budget, and he made $90 million on that. That's a pretty damn good return.
Jeez.
Damn.
Do the Right Thing, $6.2 million. One of his like lowest budget films made $81 million. Woo. And it's crazy that he made that movie so cheap, but at the same time, the way he uses the city and everything, on the one block for the most part was probably, pretty cheap for him to film there. But I think that really helps set the tone of that movie, and I love that.
Mother Sister.
Hell yeah, Mother Sister. And what's his name? Willie. I always forget his nickname. It's Sweet Dick Willie. Yeah, dude.
Sweet Dick Willie,
those guys fucking crack me up. Those three
Oh,
dudes
the
just
three
chilling the whole time.
homeboys.
That reminded me of like The Sopranos when they sit in front of that deli shop, dude.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's some
That
mob
was so
shit for
funny.
sure. Yeah. And yeah, so like those are some of his bigger movie budgets that have had a really good return for him. And then he's obviously won, 2 Academy Awards, 2 British Academy Awards, 2 Emmy Awards, 2 Peabody Awards, whatever the fuck that is.
Hell yeah,
and then they also
given to you by Gilbert Godfrey.
Oh man, I hope that'd be sick.
Mr. Peabody in the Film Channel.
He's just super annoying. 2 honorary Oscar awards too, which is pretty cool because one of them was for like, I think overall work is in his career, so that's pretty
like
badass.
The Cecil B. DeMille Award or something.
Yeah, like just celebrating you being a total badass for the entire time you've existed. So let's get into his impact with all that in mind. I mean, what do you guys think his impact has been on culture? Because and sometimes he'll be referred to kind of like Scorsese. People will be like, oh, Spike Lee's opinion is this about something. And then people will be like, what? And that was kind of a bigger thing in the 90s and early 2000s. But
I think now people just anticipate him to push the envelope, with a lot of the film, all the work that he's done and how controversial some of it has been. It's like you kind of expect him to do this now. So. Right. But I think the impact overall is, just black filmmakers in general. Now, I don't think that there's one black filmmaker that probably doesn't, accredit him at least a little bit. So he kind of put his foot in the door, and I wouldn't say he necessarily paved the way, but he definitely helped. So I think that's pretty impactful. But yeah, just his storytelling is very impactful too. It's not, boy meets girl. They don't like each other at first, and then they fall in love, and then something happens, like that typical crap that you see. Sometimes he just tells it how it is, and it's real, and it's like, might not have the outcome that you want, but I think a good director knows how to do that, and he does it well. So that's pretty impactful, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even, you mentioned black directors. I think maybe even white directors could say he was kind of influential to them. I could see some elements in his movies that maybe Kevin Smith even borrowed from, with the way he films up close to the
Hangout neighborhood movie. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And I'm sure, Kevin Smith's done so many Q&As. I'm sure that's fucking come up at some point. But
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, what about you two? What about you, Braz?
I'm gonna take this away. I have no idea. I didn't really know who he was until right for this podcast. So for me to really speak on this would be kind of stepping out of just what I would know. I'd be speaking out of my ass. So I can see why people would be inspired by him. Like his movies are, they kind of they do make you think. Not kind of. I got to check out Black Klansman and some of the other ones, but. Yeah, he seems like he'd be kind of that guy. His movies, especially in the 80s or late 80s, I guess early 90s, must have pushed the envelope back then. Because I mean, when I think of the 80s, I think of like Batman, I think of Commando, I think of a lot of different movies than these. So it's got to be super cool that a guy like this, especially a guy of color, makes these kind of like thought pushing, pushing the envelope type movies. I don't know what that's done again, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think his influence is undeniable. I mean, you start with She's Gotta Have It, and then you look at other movies like Clerks or Slacker, and so many others, and they downright owe She's Gotta Have It a little bit of a nod and a wink,
Oh, absolutely.
And especially with the style and the black and white choices. I know that's oftentimes a budget choice, but artistically it comes off, as well. And, and societally, like with stuff like Do the Right Thing, like most of that movie I'm laughing and having a good time, but that final act is painfully irrelevant even to this day. I mean, literally. So and then you move on to Malcolm X and stuff like that, and that's a controversial figure who I think that movie portrays him in a fair light. Like I think you really like are able to understand where his early anger was coming from, and I think that's all the credit to the world to Spike Lee and obviously Denzel Washington, who did a great job as Malcolm X. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's just undeniable in terms of influence, especially with like the more social commentary type movies. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even Mo Better Blues, like the way that movie is told, I think is people have to recognize, like his filmmaking contributions. Like there's just, it's like you said, it's undeniable.
I mean,
I agree.
that movie is beautifully shot, and the music is amazing.
I like the music, but I didn't care for that one.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I didn't care for it as much, but I do like the music, and I do know that his dad, I think, did the music for it.
Mm-hmm.
His dad, Bill Lee, I think, was a jazz musician. Yeah. So and really it's kind of the inverse of She's Gotta Have It. It's a guy with two women.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending, like, I mean, it's cool stuff, like how he kind of flips.
No, the ending kind of made me mad. I was like, no, fuck that. Like he dogged this girl, and then because he can't play the trumpet anymore, he gets to go to her and then have a wife and a kid. No, fuck that guy, dude. But whatever, they seemed happy at the end of the day, so I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say.
No,
man, my favorite. My bad.
Oh yeah, no. I mean that's what it's all about, right? I mean, and you're not going to like all of them.
I was going to save that for when we actually talked about that movie. But.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the legacy, let's start breaking down the 5 movies that we watched. I mean, did anybody squeeze in the extra credit of Clockers?
I tried to find it and I couldn't, but no, unfortunately,
no streaming unless for free.
I don't
know. Unfortunately.
So. All right, so we'll skip that one. That one's in my Spike Lee box set, but I didn't even make it to that one because his movies are pretty long, and I was trying to squeeze in some other shit too, so I didn't get to that. So we'll leave that one off the table. But let's start with She's Gotta Have It, because it is his first movie, and it's showing an aspect that Rex brought up earlier on, that if a guy is with that behavior, usually you're like, oh fuck yeah, bro, whatever. But if a girl does it, it's frowned upon. She might be called a whore or this or that. But it's like, for me, what I respect about that movie and her character, Nola's character, is that she's honest, and everything she does in the movie is perfectly in line with the title of the movie, which I love when that actually happens. And that's just the whole point. She's got to have it. She wants her cake and eating it too, basically. And she's so upfront about it, though, that you almost respect it, because she's pretty endearing, and she tells all 3 guys, like, look, I'm with these other dudes, but that doesn't mean I can't be with you and we can't enjoy our time there. And I respect that. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, this chick's with multiple dudes, she's got to be a whore. And everyone has a different opinion on that, but I think She's Gotta Have It is really interesting in that regard. And I think the way the movie evolves and she changes her mind and ends up wanting to be tied down to the one guy, I think is a good social commentary, which he's usually masterful at. So that's how I feel about that one overall. Probably one of my more favorite films in his repertoire.
I'm going to jump in here, and I kind of liked it that it ended in kind of the same way it does for a guy. It was like a different perspective from her, but in the end, guys will go and kind of like in Summer of Sam, John Leguizamo's character was sleeping around with all those women, and then she finally figures out what he did with her cousin and all these other women's at the salon, and and he's just like, I want you now, I'll never do it again, the same old story. And she's presented kind of that same ultimatum in the way at the end, like, I've got these 3 guys. Now I want one, because all of a sudden he's the one who's going to leave, and he's actually the nice guy of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
was he though?
Yeah, because they're all kind of douchebags. But
they're all kind of douchebaggies. But I mean, Spike Lee's character, who I thought was pretty funny.
Nola.
Yeah, like I thought he wasn't like he wasn't a bad dude, but he was just like like one of those fad chasing ghetto dudes who, really loud about everything. But he wasn't
Absolutely
generally
hated
like
him.
a really bad dude. Like he never did anything besides be like, yeah, Nola, she a hoe.
But have you guys have met people like that? Like goddamn well you've met, so like that's what makes it relatable. And yeah, he might be annoying, but that's intentional. Like that's what he's going for. You want the viewer to kind of get what you mean. And
I got one.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. You fucking got it. Exactly.
I had to reach through my screen and pop him in the face.
Mission fucking accomplished on Spike Lee's part right there, dude.
Dude,
acting wise and directing wise, he got you.
The directing part was fine. I'm just saying,
I don't know what you're talking
of the three guys, I mean, yes, they all had their issues. They all had their likes and dislikes, but I don't know. It was the one scene where they were laying down in bed and like, yes, I over embellish how many times he says her name, but like he just kept saying her name like there was multiple fucking people in the room, and it's like, bro, you just had sex with this girl. You're in your underwear. I'm pretty sure she's the only broad in the room, like. And so that part was just annoying to me in general, but like, yeah, like you're saying, she has this certain freedom about her character throughout the movie because, she's I don't know, is she being a whore? Kind of like, are you really sleeping with all three? It looked like it, but I don't know. I think that, she just didn't know what she really wanted and what was going to tie her down ultimately. The three guys kind of all had different personalities and stuff. The one guy, gosh, I always forget their names. Gosh darn it.
Greer.
Okay, Greer was the guy I liked. Greer was like the snazzy guy with the little Jerry
model
or whatever. The model guy. Like,
that guy's a fucking douchebag.
I'm the best thing to happen to you.
Well, you know what? That's the character.
He was a little dirtbag.
Yeah, that's the character I like. I thought, his portrayal of, just being this like pretentious asshole. Like, yeah, I know I'm good looking, blah, blah, blah. Like, that was kind of funny or whatever. And then, yeah, Spike Lee as Mars, he just was like this immature, like annoying younger guy that clearly didn't have a job, still living with his mom or whatever.
Hey, Nola.
Yeah,
hey.
And it just seemed like he was just, wandering the streets, and like whenever he just, felt lonely or wanted to hang out with her, he just thought he could invite himself over. What was that? After her birthday, she's laying in bed, and homie's just like, "Yo, let me come over."
She's like, "I'm with a guy. I'm with someone."
With the guy, dude. Like, no. He's like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll come over anyways." It's like, no, dude. Like, so that character bothered me, and then yeah, the possessive guy who just seemed like a total cuck to me. Just like, I'll do anything for you, baby. Like, it's a little too soft for her. So like, I'm sure she liked some parts of his personality that he was like cute with her or whatever, but like he kind of didn't have a sack. Like, so
well, it's just he knew what he wanted. He wasn't like a pussy. He just knew what he wanted. And the other two just used her, and the other one used her for arm candy. He's good.
No, he's the quote unquote nice guy. And then what does he do? He fucking assaults her at the end of the movie. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Jamie's like, to me, all three of those guys suck, and she's absolutely in her right to just have the fun that she wants to have. She's a young woman in New York. Like, do what you want to do. Freaking like
Danny over here.
any other guy in New York is doing. In fact, all three of those guys have other women that they fucking are looking at too. When she finally calls Jamie, he's already got another chick. Like, give me a break, dude. You were in love with her. Like, and then Mars is like, Mars will go for the first thing that like lets him like get some, and which at this moment is Nola, and that's why he's always, yo, Nola, like, come on, like, but like, she is a strong, like, she's independent, and I love that about her. And yeah, she's got her insecurities, but who doesn't? And like, they kind of come back and bite her in the ass with Jamie, the quote unquote nice guy. But no, Danny is totally right about him. He's ultra possessive, and like, and at the end of the day, she still doesn't really know what she wants, because she thinks she wants Jamie, but then that goes the other way, and then she's left alone, and it's like, well, it kind of leaves you just wanting more. But you know what? At the end of the day, the way I interpret it is, she's a young woman. This is something that happens to almost everybody in the world. Like I think I like that movie so much is because of how relatable it is. Like I don't know if any of you guys have been in like a situation like that, but I definitely I definitely have, and it's
No comment.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's real, and that's what that's what I love about his impact and his voice, and it's like it's very relatable. Even his more racial commentaries like are still, as a white guy, like I watch it and I can relate to a lot of like the obviously the peripheral stuff that's happening to but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I 100% think Nola is one of his best characters. What's up?
We love a strong, independent woman on this podcast.
That's right. And I hadn't seen She's Gotta Have It when we talked about doing this. I watched it a week before I suggested we do this episode. That's the movie that kind of spiraled me into it, because I watched She's Gotta Have It and then Do the Right Thing, and I was like, you know what, I want to change my selection to Spike Lee based on just watching his first movie for the first time, and I loved it immediately. Like, it's not a very long movie, it's a real quick burn, and it's just, I love it, and Nola, she stands out to me. I think if I had to rank some of his best characters, she would be in the top 5, no doubt.
For sure.
Yeah.
With Mars. Hey, yo, Nola!
Hey, yo, Nola! Hey, yo, Danny!
So,
don't ever say that.
Let me come over, Danny!
It's basically 3 yeses and 1 no for Danny, I guess. He just not a fan of that movie.
Well, of the ones we watched, that was my least favorite one.
That's fair though. That is, I mean, it is the roughest.
And I mean, and I'm we're not doing the ratings anymore, but on the Letterboxd, I gave it 3 out of 5.
Yeah. Speaking of that, 3 out of the 4 of us are on Letterboxd. Check us out. Check out our reviews if you're interested in that kind of thing. We do more movies than we even cover. Yeah, Rex hasn't joined it yet, but I fully endorse that shit. I love it. I like having the movie diary thing there. And we obviously review all kinds of movies that we'll never cover on the show, probably, at least not until we get to somebody's career or something.
Levante Kills 85.
Yeah. Japan 87.
I watch a lot of martial arts movies.
Yep.
I watch a lot of B-list crappy movies that people would never watch, but I love them.
It will only let me review a movie once, so my repeated watch of Who Framed Roger Rabbit doesn't go over
That's
well.
the guy, dude.
This little side tangent.
Mine's Practical, if you want to check that out. I watch just everything. I love movies, so I love to give anything a chance. So you'll see an array of shit on there. Some pretentious ass shit or some just absolute nonsense. That's just how I roll. So moving on, though, let's talk about Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing, for me, I already talked about it a bunch in the beginning, said all the eloquent shit I wanted to say. So now I'll just kind of say that I love every character in that movie. I think they all represent a certain part of an argument that he can.
Even Danny Aiello's character?
Well, maybe love is a strong term.
I wouldn't even put a black man on his wall.
No, what I love about it is they all feel like real people. They all feel like, you would encounter these people at some point in your life and may have. And I think Spike Lee does a fucking great job in that movie. Just like it's the reason I love the show The Shield. It's the way the movie is filmed. I feel
you're in there.
Yeah, I'm with it. And it's like, and it's just do the right thing. Just makes you feel along the ride with Mookie and all these other characters. And Mookie is another one of my favorites. He's a very flawed character in a shitload of ways, but he's also interesting. He's again real. He's things that we've all either maybe been through or know someone that's been through, and it's real.
How are you gonna leave fine ass Rosie Perez at home like that?
Right? Yeah.
How are you gonna leave her with the kid that you have and like not really acknowledge it? I think that kind of bothered me about that character. I was like, dude, what? Like, and especially with her, like, yeah, I get it. She lives with her mom, and that might be a little bit of a bump in the road, so to speak. But like, yeah, it's amazing to me that she's so beautiful in that movie, but that voice is a little too much for me. But yeah, no, going back to what you were saying, Brack, is like, I liked that the setting was at that pizza place because it feels like a pretty neutral area, You know, it's a common place where people go to get something to eat, and then it's also a common place for people to go and meet up with other people and, you know, start talking about things. And especially with that movie, with it being in such a close knit neighborhood, you get the vibe of like everybody knows your name. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
plug Cheers right there. But yeah, his character in that was a lot less annoying. But I
was wondering
agree
what
with
you
you as
thought of
well.
Mookie.
He was a lot more real in this movie. Just, you know, being a real guy, just trying to get by and get his money and whatnot. And I definitely enjoyed his character a lot more in this movie. But yeah, just the slew of characters that really kind of make this movie stand out on its own. I mean, the mayor, dude. You just think it's just this like stumbling old black
Love
guy
the
just
mayor.
walking around just
Yeah.
wasted the whole time.
He's
but
awesome.
like he's actually pretty
he rules,
insightful.
dude. Yeah,
And
he's
you know,
great.
he's trying to, you know, be the wise old, you know, janitor or whatever, so to speak.
Yeah, he's the neighborhood wise man. He's fucking
Right.
yeah.
So I did like the character
That's drunk
development
as
that he
fuck.
had, and he had really good character development with you know, a multitude of characters. It wasn't just like 3 or 4 people. It was like 7 or 8
mother,
people
sister?
that you were getting, you know, entwined with. And
Mhm.
so I definitely enjoyed this one a lot more than She's Gotta Have It, for sure.
I really love and my interpretation of the ending is just always that, like, you know, he did the right thing by starting that riot because he might have saved Sal, because he knows Sal deep down is just a hardworking man. He's not necessarily trying to ruffle any feathers. He wants
No.
things to stay the same. And
Mhm.
Mookie has that respect and that allegiance for Sal still, even though Sal might be responsible for some pretty crappy things, and we see that, and he won't even budge to put, you know, the brothers on the wall, like Bugging Out says. And you can
Mhm.
understand where they're coming from because they help him build that business in their neighborhood, and I think he's wrong for not doing that. But you're still, as the viewer, there with Mookie, and you feel that respect that Mookie has for him. And I feel like if he hadn't incited that riot with that trash can at the end, something bad might have happened to Sal. And I think that's Mookie
Sure.
making a hard decision right there, and, you know, everything boiling over. And that's why I love it personally. That's just my interpretation. One thing I like about Spike Lee's movies is I might be wrong about that, but that's just what I take from what he's giving me, and I love it for that reason. I love movies that, like the band Tool, like things are kind of up for interpretation sometimes, and you as the listener or viewer are kind of in control of what that might be. So,
Bro,
So
all
you
you had to
think
do
he
was
was right
turn
or
the
wrong?
guy's stereo down. He didn't need to bash that thing. Those things are expensive.
All you need to do was put a Jackie Robinson on the wall, man. Come on.
yeah, it would have been easy.
Right?
But yeah, just
But
what do you
like,
think?
no, I agree with practical. Like, I kind of interpret that as the same way. You know, Danny Aiello, his character is just holding on to the last piece of the neighborhood that he maybe grew up in, that has
Right.
changed over the years and has gotten a lot darker over the years. And now these people are the reason why his business succeeds. And it is kind of fucked. All they want is like literally you put one picture up on the wall and you
Mhm.
save yourself all this thing. But yeah, I mean, Mookie at the end of the day saves Danny Aiello. I'm sorry, what was his name?
Sal.
Sal.
Yeah.
Sal. Even though Sal is going to hate him for it because he still sides with Bugging Out. You know, because like who wouldn't side with Bugging Out, especially after the cops come in and strangle Radio Raheem to death.
Right.
Which is just painfully relevant. Like I've said that before, I'll say it again. Like I watched that and I can't help but think of a real life event that happened just a few years ago, you know,
Mhm.
and it was just crazy to see in a movie from 1989. And yeah, it hit me pretty good. I was like, fuck, man, that's crazy. And then yeah, Mookie did the right thing. He saved Sal because at the end of the day, like, it's not about Sal's Pizza Shop or Bugging Out's picture requests. It's the neighborhood. You gotta preserve the neighborhood. You gotta preserve this connection to each other. And there's gonna be some pain, and there is pain at the end of that movie. But there's also like a little bit of hope because I mean,
Give me back my $500.
Yeah, he got paid.
Yeah.
I love that too because it shows Mookie. He kind of grows. I mean, he was always pretty honorable, but I love that scene at the end where Sal overpays him and he's like, "Nah, I owe you $50 or whatever." Like, I love that too. It's just fucking. I don't know. Mookie is just. I love that movie.
Yeah, I have hope that they'll talk again. You know, someday.
Exactly.
That's what I mean by that. He's like, "No, I owe you $50." I kind of trailed off because like it was really impactful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he owes him $50. I'll come back. I'll pay you that $50. We will talk again. We will mend bridges and build roads.
Absolutely.
Jeez, I got to rewatch this movie.
I just thought they was wild.
The thing I got
fucked up my Jordans, man.
Like, I thought it was like, I mean, now that you guys are all saying this, it makes sense. But I thought it was more like a collapse of community over what happened, where the whole community is.
Well, it is
like
it's a lot of
relying on each other, or like they don't like each other, but they know each other are necessary for the neighborhood to survive.
Yeah,
right.
But then at the end, I don't know it. From what I got, it just seemed the movie kind of ends on this. Right or wrong is kind of not really relevant here.
I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, it's again, so social commentary and racism and all that stuff that's experienced in that movie as the viewer, and Mookie is the character, and Bugging Out and Radio Raheem. All that shit is relevant because it still occurs today. It still occurred 10 years before that movie happened. It occurred 5 minutes after that movie happened. You know, that's very pressing as an issue, and for someone like Spike Lee to just come in there and pinpoint it perfectly and even predict where we're at even in modern day times, you know, it's a good commentary. It just shows you where you're at, you know. So
well, also like Brandon said, that what happened to Radio Raheem is kind of just scary, reflective of now, like, you know, past repeats itself, even though that's not based on a real event. You know, it's something he made back in the day that's still true to the social commentary. So just some things on it, but I definitely gotta watch that again. I think I missed quite a big thing in there. What Brandon said, I was like, oh fuck. That was a trip. You might have trailed off, but I was like, I didn't think of it that way.
I'm untrained at this radio thing.
That's the beauty, you know, of movies, is you can rewatch them and get different things from them each time. The deeper ones, anyway. You're not gonna watch Twister and get a fucking different perspective and shit. But you know, the movies that are meant to make you think will do just that. And then when you rewatch them, you have time to think about the things you thought about last time and a whole plethora of new things as you go forward. And I think that's why I love movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. Like, is Sal within his right to not oblige the community that he is a part of in his own, in the business that he owns? I mean, it's a very complicated question, you know? Like, where does the money for that business come from? But also he has his own, you know, rights and freedom of speech, and like he wants to represent his Italian brothers, and that's perfectly fine. So, I mean, it starts with a very simple question, and it just, you know, hot summer day will fucking do that to you. It'll boil over. Which is a theme.
Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, you know.
There's a bunch of brothers you could have put on that wall that are like, okay, I'm proud of that. Yeah.
Just think about what a very hot day did to fucking Michael Douglas and Falling Down, you know. Like, just put you over the top, you know. Fucking, you're done.
Just trying to get to my daughter's birthday. I love
Well, Rex,
movie.
I hope you do rewatch it, and I hope you gather some new things from it, because Do the Right Thing is, to me, like, if you guys made me make like a top 20 movie list, I think Do the Right Thing would probably be in that list. I mean, it's
one of his better ones for sure.
I love it. You know, it's great. It's a great film. Malcolm X. Let's talk Malcolm X. We've talked about it a little bit already, but we all know it's got to be probably his best movie. Just in terms of execution, and you know, it's one of those movies that supports the length. Like, you're like, fuck, it's 3 hours and 22 minutes, but it's like, how would you tell a condensed version of that story? You fucking couldn't. So it's worthy of its runtime. You know, Denzel Washington, we talked about it. He kills it. It's another instance where Spike Lee appears in this film. And I think even though he's not a super relevant character, I still love the feel that he brings to the earlier points of the movie.
I love the pimp suits, dude, when they're walking on the street.
That's one of my favorite things, too. And I also love
I thought I picked the wrong movie when that happened because, like, I didn't really put two and two together. I'm like, yo, what is this?
You're like, shit, is this a deleted scene from The Mask?
Right. Yeah. Seriously, dude. Somebody.
But yeah, I think it's funny because Spike Lee is the perfect director to cover a figure like Malcolm X. And, you know, I wrote a pretty lengthy Letterboxd review of this one because it was my 100th film that I'd reviewed this year already. So I kind of went out of the way on that one. And it was just good timing, too. With, like I said, Black History Month coming to a close. I actually wish we had done all 4 weeks African-American artists. That would have been fitting. But for whatever reason, my dumbass forgot it was Black History Month.
Unbelievable, dude.
I thought it was March, honestly.
How dare you?
I was fucking waiting for it, and I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. It's this month. Fuck.
Nah, dude. March is for the Irish.
Yeah. I don't follow that type of shit. I'm
and
not,
the Christians.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. At least we caught it. That's all that matters. But Malcolm X, like I said, if you haven't seen it out there, if you're listening to us, it's got to be, like Bon had said in the beginning, one of the best biopics probably of all time. Again, a top fiver for sure. How do you guys feel about it? What you haven't said already? I mean,
it makes me wonder after watching that why some of these other directors today that are making biopics don't like take notes. Now, mind you, I've seen some pretty good ones recently. I really liked A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan one. But then there's ones I didn't care for. Like, I didn't really care for Elvis. I didn't really care for Rocket Man. But then, you know, Straight Outta Compton, excellent. Bohemian Rhapsody, pretty good, you know. So I feel like if you're going to do it, you should try to follow his method, you know, show it all. Don't just show one part of his, you know, career or their life or whoever you're covering. And that was my biggest problem with The Complete Unknown was like, it wasn't Bob's full life. But with this movie, you literally watched the transition. And I think I had, you know, said that in my review about this movie on my Letterboxd was I loved the character building and the maturity of Malcolm X's character from, you know, back when he was, you know, had a white girlfriend and, you know, racketeering people and stealing money from people and stuff, and him going to jail and like ultimately trying to find redemption in any way he can, and, you know, trying to pick up on you know, the religion of Islam, and just the development of him as a, you know, an activist, as a voice for, you know, Black people in general, but just like almost like a worldly movement. So I thought it was really well done in that retrospect. And of course, you couldn't pick anyone better to do it than Denzel. He delivers. He doesn't. I don't know that there's a movie that I've watched of his where I'm like, yo, why was he in that movie? Like Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, maybe. But, you know, that's like
someone's got to pay. You know?
That's dangerously close to a good
remake.
One. Yeah.
But I think I was telling you this earlier, Practical. Like, I need to watch American Gangster again because like that one doesn't really that one doesn't really hit me that hard. But when you were talking about it, I'm like, see, now I feel like X. Now I feel like I gotta go back and rewatch that. But like,
yeah, dude, he kills it as Frank.
He demands your attention, and that's why he's you know, one of the best actors working still today. Is he commands your attention. And he does it so well in this movie, but so subtly and so in a fair light. Like Bont was saying, you know, it's a fair movie about the ups and downs of this, you know, iconic person in American history that, you know, not a lot of people probably didn't get a chance to see. Obviously, we weren't all alive when all that was going on, but it was a good storytelling of, you know, from him being a kid and the KKK coming and, you know, lighting up his house to literally him driving to his last rally by himself, which I thought was super awkward because he always used to roll up either with his family or someone else. And so you kind of got this, you know, hinkering that like something bad was going to happen. And man, that ending of how he was taken out, like, I don't know how much of that was embellished, but damn, if he got killed like that, that is insane. And especially to be in front of your family and your wife and, you know, all your supporters and just get absolutely destroyed in broad daylight. Like it's crazy to think that that was real. But no, this is his best movie. I mean, for me at least. It didn't feel like the almost 3 hours. But again, it's because Denzel he commands you to, you better look at me, get your fucking hands off of me. Like I love when he does it like 3 movies, and this is one of them. And no, he's one of my favorite actors, regardless, dude. Like, and he has such range, and he can do such great things. But taking over and playing an iconic character like this, there's nobody that does it better. I think, at least.
So that was accurate to his assassination. The only difference is that it was just 1 buckshot. The movie illustrates 2 buckshots, but then the other dudes do run up and shoot him. And what I recorded was 21 times. They shot him 21 times.
For anyone that has ever watched a movie with me, at least 2 or 3 of you can attest. That was an fuck moment for me. I was not prepared, and when that happened, it came. So
the way he films it's fucking brutal to watch. The camera doesn't pan away, and Spike Lee is like Martin Scorsese in his violence. When he doesn't show it that often, but when he does show it, it pinpoints it directly, and you feel it. Like you're in the moment with them, and it's definitely a crazy scene. Even rewatching it today, I was like, "Fuck!" Like you're right. It is an fuck moment. You're just like, "Shit, man, what just happened?"
It's intense, man. It's a lot. It's a lot.
That civil rights movement took JFK, RFK, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King, man. So it's dangerous times.
Off-topic question: is there a Martin Luther King movie?
There's a couple.
I think there is.
I think Selma is one.
Selma's the most recent one, I believe, and it wasn't the best. But there are other ones. There's no like big biopic one. Like,
right. That's what I was thinking. So,
but Spike Lee or maybe Jordan Peele maybe should do something like that. I think
100%.
Either one would be good for that. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, and that's what I love about the behind the scenes of this movie is, I mean, it was originally going to be directed by the guy that did In the Heat of the Night, I think.
Denzel was in that one too?
Something, no, that's Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier.
Poitier? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's in some movie with heat in it. I'm sorry.
But I mean, for whatever reason, he bowed out, and I mean, there was a lot of backlash at a white guy directing a Malcolm X movie, especially with a lot of Malcolm X's earlier views on white people. So eventually Spike Lee jumped in and took the helm, and yeah, he's the perfect guy to do it. He's an up and coming voice in film at the time. He's obviously black, and he's smart.
He's crazy smart.
And one other thing, like, to go back to what Danny was saying earlier, like how so many more recent biopics just aren't as good, and one of the reasons for that is just the studios. The studios nowadays suck. They interfere. They stick their fingers in where they don't belong, and that's why Malcolm X is such an uncompromising.
Yeah, Spike
vision.
was not about to have that,
No, it's an independent movie in all regards. Like Spike had to fund a lot of it himself. He got donations from people like Oprah and Bill Cosby and a bunch of other people at the time, like black guys at the time. Yeah, I mean. But
at the time,
nonetheless, like all these people came together to help get this movie made, and I think that's why it's such a pure vision and why it is as good as it is, and why so many of today's biopics suck. I haven't seen A Complete Unknown. It's on Hulu. I plan to watch it. It's probably going to have thoughts just because I always do.
Of course you do, but it's really good.
I mean, I love me some Chalamet, so
yeah,
he's killing it, man. I mean, he might get that Oscar. Who knows?
Not for Bob Dylan.
Maybe he was really good in that movie.
It's either him or Adrian Brody, but that's a whole nother podcast.
He killed it in that movie. I'm not even a Dylan fan, and I thought
Adrian Brody's in excellent. Summer of Sam. Speak of the devil.
That's true.
We can move on if you want, because I know Rex may. I mean, you got anything to say about the first hour of Malcolm X?
Yeah, right.
The thing I did notice was kind of his change in like how he feels, like thinking back on earlier times in his life. Like he first sees that I don't remember her name, but the white girl he's with for that first part of that movie. Sophia, and he sees her, and he's, you know, kind of entranced by her. But then through the part that I saw, he got to the point where he's like kind of angry at her, like in that scene where she's feeding him. Like he's just got done with this kind of flashback, and then he's kind of there with her. They're, you know, hanging out, and he's like, you know, you're gonna scream grape, you know, all this kind of stuff, and you can kind of feel the tension he has building towards them. But again, I didn't finish it, so I don't know how it turns out, and I don't really know the story or the whole life of Malcolm X. So,
well, they show more of his childhood, and I mean, it's traumatic. I mean, his mother had a traumatic childhood. His father had a traumatic childhood.
They didn't give his mom.
His mother was white, wasn't she?
His dad died.
His mother was half black. Yeah, because she was her mother
by a white man.
Yeah, her mother was raped by a white guy. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but
fun
that's what I
stuff.
saw. So, so far, of course, Denzel's great. The movie seemed, you know, really awesome. I'm gonna finish it, but I wish I would have
sorry
been
to
able
spoil
to.
so much of it for you.
No,
but
it's fine.
What are you gonna do?
Fine. Yeah.
It is also history,
it's history, so I mean,
yeah, I mean,
no spoiling.
But I'll tell you what, you know, going back to like being in school, I didn't really learn too much about it, so I'm glad I watched the movie.
Either, like not specifically him or MLK.
Right, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. Fucking public school
that's
system.
all I have to say.
Yeah,
Fix it, Linda McMahon.
But you know, if you finish it, let us know what you think either way, because it's fantastic.
Maybe that'll be my first letterbox after Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, join us. Join the dark side.
Well, going on to the next one, I'm going to let you guys all take over because I did not watch Summer of Sam. So sorry.
Bon, I know you love that movie, so why don't you kick that one off? Let us know how you feel about
all
it.
about it.
Go.
Yeah, I mean,
this
watch
is
like a seminal movie from my childhood. I really love it. Adrian Brody is so good in this as Richie, the punk coming back from being wherever the fuck he was to the old neighborhood, and no one recognizes him. All the hardcore Italian dudes, where I know this movie does get some criticism for like stereotyping white ethnic culture, but I mean, if you've ever met an Italian American dude from New York, that's what they are. And in the 70s, I can only imagine it was worse, you know. But at the end of the day, like I said to these guys, there's a character in that movie in the neighborhood who is a gay guy named Bobby the Fairy, and they come and they got his back when he gets beat up. They go and fuck those guys up because he's part of the neighborhood. And that's one of the things about that movie that I love is there's a real sense of community, even though that movie is about the community collapsing because of the David Berkowitz Son of Sam killings that are happening in their peripheral, which I think are the scenes of David Berkowitz, the 44 caliber killer kills are so like visceral and violent, and like that is about as close to a Martin Scorsese movie I think as Spike Lee's ever gotten is Summer of Sam. Like obviously there's the Italian stuff in it, but just the way it's shot and the way it's just got New York like bleeding from the DVD case, literally. That movie is one of Spike Lee's masterpieces in a long line of masterpieces. And I know it's kind of a controversial pick because it's not one of his more well-regarded movies, but
I don't know why, but yeah,
I say go to hell. I think that movie's great.
It is
and
great.
Again, it's takes place hot summer in New York.
So hot.
Such a theme through all of his movies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. It was a movie that I watched a bunch as a child. I walked to, the local video store, and I rented that movie several times because I love true crime shit even at a young age. So what was great about that movie is it wasn't like a typical like slasher approach to because that shit was pretty, intense, just like any of the other serial killer movies there are, but it takes a completely different approach to it. And, it puts you in it. We say that about all of his movies, but it puts you in it. It makes you feel like you're there and you're feeling the tension and the fear. And I love that about it as well. I mean, you pretty much touched on all the points that I had about that movie.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and
I
even
agree.
though there's a lack of color, as we'll say in this movie, it still feels like a Spike Lee movie. Like,
oh, for sure.
those characters could have all been black guys, you know, and it would have been still very same vibe. Mira Sorvino in this movie, I would die for her. I fucking love her in this movie. And then also Gloria Esposito is in this movie, and yeah,
Ruby.
and then
Oh, I'm sorry, that's Jennifer.
is it Jennifer Esposito?
Yeah, Jennifer. It's Jennifer Esposito.
Pardon me. Unfortunately, John Leguizamo's in this movie.
What
I hate
the
that
fuck,
guy.
Professor?
I hate John Leguizamo. He sucks. He's never good.
Pest rules.
The Pest does not rule.
Not a
dude.
complete masterpiece.
You go back
John
to
Leguizamo's in it.
what I said earlier. I like those B movies. Okay, so the Pest rules.
There are even glimpses of good
Oh.
moments from John Leguizamo in this, but I just fucking hate him. I cannot stand that guy. I hate him in everything he's in. Suck this, John Leguizamo.
I like him in John Wick. I think he's perfectly
Well, he
fine
had,
in
like,
John Wick.
a 5-minute part.
Yeah, exactly. He's good in small doses.
Get this car.
Well, what about you, Danny? Oh wait, never mind. Rex. Yeah, because Danny didn't want to.
I actually really like this movie. I know we don't do ratings, but this is probably one of the few movies I'll give a 10 where nobody really dies. I mean, people die, but none of the
Hella
main
people
cast.
die.
But none of the main cast or anything. But like, because the son of Sam is kind of the background
Yeah.
for the movie, not the focus.
Mm-hmm.
But and not anything against this movie, but it gives me that same sense of Halloween Kills. It's kind of like the bad guy is the killer, but the bad guy isn't the focus of the movie. It's the atmosphere and what it does to people that becomes the actual bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they think that Adrian Brody's character is, the son of Sam, just because he's weird, they find out about his things going on at the sex club, what he does in those movies with Ruby.
Yeah. Again, shades of like Spike Lee and the racial stuff. It's just positioned in kind of a different light this term.
Instead of using a colored race type thing, they use a derogatory.
He's just different.
Yeah, he's different. So, and it kind of finds its roots in the neighborhood he chooses, because those old timey Italian old style ones. Even though they have their friends, like I can't remember his name, but the fairy guy,
Bobby the Fairy.
Bobby the Fairy. He like you said, he's from the neighborhood. He's been there and he never left. But Richie left, comes back with a British accent, looking like he does, tight shirt. He's got the thing, and he's full into it. And so that kind of sets them off, and you feel it throughout the movie. Like when he gets kicked out of the diner, and then also his effect he has on John Leguizamo's character, on top of what's all going on in his head, like this whole God thing, and like what he's doing with this girl, and
his own guilty conscience because he's constantly just cheating on her.
And then his own inability to stand up for what he thinks, and he does exactly what Richie tells him. He just falls in line with how people think he's supposed to think because of where he's from. So the movie has a lot of layers to it, and I really like this movie. I was shocked to see Adrian Brody. I was like, holy, that's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
I love all the punk scenes in the movie.
It was great. And then seeing kind of Ruby's transition from being one of those Italian neighborhood girls to, turning into that scene because she felt more accepted, because, everybody treated her like shit in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that song that she sings is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so the movie's really great, and I like at the end the dude's stepdad comes out and actually saves him.
Hell yeah.
I did not see that coming, man. I thought he was done for.
Homie from Dumb and Dumber.
He comes out just bam, bam, bam. He's like, "What are you, stupid?" He's like, "They got him on the TV. It's all over." No, it's I think that movie gets a 10. We're not doing scales, but if it did, it would be a 10 for me, even though nobody died really. None of the main cast died. So that speaks to me anyways.
Hell yeah.
That's crazy, because that's usually crucial to your 10. So.
Dude, it is. It's
someone gotta die.
Someone's gotta die. But that movie was super good. I'm definitely gonna probably watch it quite a few more times.
Hell yeah. Well, let's move on to Mo Better Blues. Did everyone watch that one? Everyone get to that one?
Hell
Didn't
yeah,
really want
dude!
to
Snipes on the
after I watched it.
sax.
Oh yeah. It's another good one. It's filmed really well. It looks beautiful. It's the way it's
Looks
shot.
so
Really
vibrant.
colorful.
Yeah, and the music, is a high point, and Denzel is once again just a high point. And it does that thing that kind of Do the Right Thing does, where it has a lot of unique characters that are just memorable throughout the whole movie. And I love that shit. Like a lot of movies kind of fail at that. I mean, it's not always the focus, but a lot of times movies, at least these days, will kind of drop the ball at making a memorable character or making you remember everyone you're seeing on film. And I think this is another one that shines in that regard. So I like it. It's definitely not one of my top Spike Lee movies, but that just speaks volumes to his filmography, because I do like it a lot, but it's not up there. I wouldn't say it's my favorite film by him by any stretch of the means, but it's probably top 10 in his filmography.
Yeah,
It's
no,
pretty
it
good.
definitely isn't. But I like the dedication that Denzel again puts into this character. I like that scene where he pretty much had the girl at his place, and he's like sitting there practicing his what do they call it, bars, scales,
Mhm.
excuse me. And then they're getting into it because he's clearly an obsessive musician. You see it from the beginning of the movie when he's a kid and all the kids are like, "Come on, man, you never come out to play." And he's like, "I gotta practice my lessons." And you could tell that he didn't like it at the time, but he became so obsessive with it, and whether it was him or his parents that kind of made him become that trumpet player, he mastered his craft and he knew he was good at it. But with that came the impulse to constantly, he was just like sex driven. He's running around with two different girls and all you think about is banging them and stuff. But like that scene where he's with I believe her name was Clark,
Mm-hmm.
and she bit his lip, and he got so pissed. He's like, "My lips make me money, girl." And she just couldn't really understand that. But I think at the same time you kind of felt for both the women, because he was playing them both, and they obviously knew how great of a musician he was and wanted to be a part of that, so to speak, whether they had good intentions or bad intentions. And then it kind of gets to the point where Wesley Snipes' character starts hitting on Clark, and it's kind of getting to Denzel. It's like, no, 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 I'm gonna keep maintaining this. Like, this is who I am, kind of a thing. And if you want to play your own music, then you go start your own band.
Right.
So he was definitely, I wouldn't say he was entitled, but it's like, I agree with him. My name's on the marquee. I'm running the show here, so you follow my lead. But
Right.
yeah, there were a lot of good characters in this too. John Turturro, and I can't remember the other actor's name. He's been in a lot of stuff, but like them playing like the greedy brothers that own the nightclub, like clearly they were kind of screwing them out of money. Whether that was a race thing or not, I feel like it probably was.
That's the contract Giant gave you.
Right.
Signed for you. Like,
Exactly. And it's kind of messed up, but in the time I'm sure it was a lot harder for musicians, especially black jazz musicians, to get what they felt was right. And especially if he's bringing in people, every single night or whenever they're performing, I totally get where he's coming from. It's like, yo, throw me a little bit more here. Like, we want to spice this show up. And then they kind of deny him, and I like that he does that own little side part of his show where like it's super out of place and it almost felt like slam poetry. Like, that part kind of made me laugh a little bit. He's like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna start doing this then, and we'll see if people keep coming in here or whatever." But
Yeah.
yeah, the movie was super colorful though, and I loved the jazz music. I'm not usually a big jazz guy, but certain movies kind of bring it out that make me enjoy it a little bit more when I'm watching a movie. One of my favorites is La La Land. I love all the jazz that's used in that movie as well. So, yeah, I would agree with you as well. Practical. I don't say that it's one of his better movies, but I did like this one a lot more than I thought I was going to, because when I read the synopsis, I was like, I don't know, like, what's this going to get to? How's this going to evolve as a movie? But it told a story. It told a pretty good story, so I liked it.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna jump in just because I didn't care for this one as much, even though it's got Denzel and pretty much not very many people I know. Like, I know John Turturro, but I don't really know his name. So when I see him, I'm just like, that guy.
Giancarlo Esposito's in this one again, dude.
Wesley
Yeah.
Snipes.
Wesley
And
Snipes,
Wesley
yeah.
Snipes, dude.
So in the movie was all right. I kind of like how he treated his manager. Like, they were still friends, even though he's like getting into debt and all this. Spike Lee's characters doing all that with his gambling. And
Just to jump in, this is the movie where I loved Spike Lee.
Hell yeah.
Danny?
Yeah.
Oh, he was great in this.
Okay. Oh, all right. Well, I thought you disliked him in almost all the roles when you talked about
No,
him.
I'm just saying that first movie, I was like, if this is how his characters are going to be in these movies, I am going to be really miserable throughout these, other ones.
No, yeah, his character was good in it, and I was mentioning this earlier. That I really like the ending because he goes back to Indigo, and there's that scene where his kid's playing the jazz, and the kids come to play outside, but he does the opposite of his father, and he lets him go play. Because after what happened to his lip and stuff, and how he couldn't make money, I think in my view of it, what he saw is kind of, giving him more options. Because that's all Denzel's character knew was to play music, where his son now could, has a wider range instead of being told by his dad, like, you're going to do this. Even though he may have enjoyed it, but it's still, I think what happened to his face and all that kind of changed his outlook on how he was going to raise his son and give him more freedom to do what he really wanted.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, this movie was all right. I probably won't watch it again. It was super crazy, colorful, and I do kind of agree with what Danny said. With what was Denzel's character's name?
Bleak.
Yeah. It's hard to tell with women when you're becoming really famous, or anybody when you're a girl. Like who are they, and is it better to just play the game? Like that. And in the end, he ended up figuring out Indigo after he lost everything was the one.
Well, he clearly didn't know what he was doing either, buying them the same dress and
Yeah,
not really knowing they were going to wear it the same night. But you figure he would always keep them kind of away from the club, and then they both are like, "Screw this, I'm going down there." And then they're both wearing the same thing. It's like
on the same night.
That's playing with hot fire, though. That's that's playing with
I mean,
fire
but in his
burned.
defense, he's kind of like Nola. He's pretty straight up with them,
Yeah, but still, it's still kind of insulting.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's an egomaniacal. I love Denzel as an actor, and I think this movie speaks to it because he was able to make me really not like him. Like, I appreciate his talent, and he is a beautiful trumpet player, but like, he is so selfish and so egotistical in this movie, and I think obviously, his manager is the ultimate reason why he gets his lip busted and can't play the trumpet anymore, but he kept his manager on because that was the guy that was making him money and trying to get him these shots, and it's just his long-term boy, but also like he's so wrapped up in playing the trumpet and these women that kind of gets away from him, and his manager's getting into all this debt and stuff, and it's like you got to pay attention, man, but you're an asshole. So oh wait, your lip is busted and now you can't play the trumpet anymore. Now you're gonna go back to Clark and start a family, and yeah, you might be a better dad than your dad, but at the end of the day, you're still I don't know. Yeah, he was a motherfucker in that movie.
It is just it's a weird thing. I feel like it happens in a lot of movies where like they reject the girl or guy or vice versa, and then they lose everything and kind of come crawling back like, you were always the one. I may have nothing now, but you were always the one.
That like made me so mad.
It's just like that egotistical thing you have to be to kind of be famous. Like it all has to be kind of about you. So if you
and he really does have to drop his ego to go crawling back to her and start a family with her. So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it is he does get past that, but man, what a cocksucker.
Well, that's one of the best things about Spike Lee's movies is he's able to tell compelling stories about people who have flaws and broken people, and we're all like that in real life. We all have our either insecurities or things that we've done in the past that might make us not the best people. Maybe not as extreme as the things represented in those movies, but it's in a relatable sense. Like there might always be some regret for some past thing you've done, but it's shaped who you are today. And I think Spike Lee is really good at having not only main characters, but also really good supporting characters that illustrate that as well. So that's one of his strong points. Like he's great at that. So
I think that's why he was able to do that with his son, because like Brandon said, he kind of had to leave his ego behind in order to go back to her. And he also had to leave his ego behind to not force his kid to become like the protege to, who he was.
He probably took some mushrooms off camera or something, and then like experienced ego death, and was like, "Fuck, I gotta go back to Clark. She was the one."
I thought it was Indigo.
No, Indigo gets with Wesley Snipes.
Indigo's the one that gets. Okay, sorry.
Indigo is the one with the big. So I remember. Trust me.
Yeah, she had the big brain.
Yeah,
super smart.
And the other girl is actually Spike Lee's sister in real life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
she was really good, actually.
She's also in most of his movies. She usually pops up here and there. So, yeah.
It's a family affair.
Inside Man. I mean, his most normal
I didn't know
movie.
it was a Spike Lee movie, to be honest.
If I can use that
like
term.
10 times.
Like,
Never knew.
Really? Oh, really interesting. But yeah. Well, I mean, you did say that. Yeah, you weren't too familiar with him, but I think it's probably his most normal movie, at least his most like mainstream blockbuster type movie.
That's a good term, mainstream.
Yeah. But it's great. I mean, Clive Owen is great. Jodie Foster's great. Shut up, Danny.
Jodie Foster is great in that movie.
Jodie Foster's
great
great
legs
in
in that
everything.
movie.
Dude,
She's got
great
great
in
legs in
general.
that movie, that's for sure.
But I think it's a pretty good take on a heist film, and I like the way it's filmed as well. It has some Spike Lee isms in it, but it does stick to a more like I said, mainstream formula. But it's a really interesting film, and I like it overall. I think it's still up there. While it's not part of his normal repertoire, it's still really good and worth watching if you haven't seen it. I mean,
definitely makes you think. It's not your typical bank robbery for sure, especially the way that everything kind of gets played out. And it's pretty ingenious how they make everybody dress up the same, and there's obviously things that they find out later on when they finally do get into the bank that these guys were a couple steps ahead of them. But yeah, I liked a lot of the supporting cast as well. Willem Dafoe was pretty awesome in this movie.
Yeah,
Willem Dafoe in the movie, and you cast him as the most normal person ever.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I bet that was one of his most challenging roles.
Yeah, he's like, what do I do? I can't be like,
how do I be normal?
You're telling me I can't use my hog in this movie?
You don't like me lobster?
And then the actor that plays his partner, he's been in quite a few things.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Ejiofor. Excuse me.
Ejiofor.
He was really good in this movie too. I liked him. Kind of as like, he was almost trying to be the better part of his conscience, and that, Denzel obviously was going to do anything to get his man, so to speak. A lot of interesting shots in this movie. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. The Segway thing was interesting because it was almost like he was in a trance when he was like, just wheeling along like that. But having the screen time with both him and Clive Owen was pretty magical. They're both really, like I've used this word before, commanding actors. So while they're kind of going back and forth, it could be just subtle dialogue, but just the way that they, perform and can perform with each other, it made it a lot more believable, and a lot more tension was added, so to speak. And I did like the kind of little twist thing at the end, and I like those movies that sometimes leave it open-ended, so to speak, like what's going to happen, did this person catch this person after, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it wasn't a typical, like the ones we've been talking about, Spike Lee movie for sure. Like I said, before I even watched it and I saw that it was on our list that we had to watch, I was like, wait, Spike Lee did that movie? What? Because I had never seen it, obviously, and I, not that I didn't want to, but it just didn't really appeal to me, I guess, when it came out. But I'm glad I watched it because it was pretty good. I mean, again, not one of his best, but it was entertaining for sure.
Hell yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I'm just going to say this was, of the movies we watched, probably my least favorite. Not to say it was a bad movie or anything, but and I do appreciate it for showing Spike Lee's range. You know, he can do the studio heist movie, and to me, that's what it is. I mean, it was a decent movie, but it was a studio heist movie, and I was kind of missing his voice as I'm watching this. You know, I like that social commentary. I like having, you know, kind of like maybe uncomfortable conversations sometimes if people can, you know, keep it even. And like that was missing in this movie for me. Again, a solid heist movie, but for a Spike Lee movie, it just kind of left me wanting more. Clive Owen's great. Chiwetel Ejiofor is great. Willem Dafoe is super fucking normal in this movie, and that's weird. And then yeah, Jodie Foster killing it as always.
That's what she does.
She can
Shake
foster
a
me.
pay in the way.
Yeah.
I do believe you're on mute, Danny.
You might be muted. We didn't hear you.
I was doing Shake a Pea in the Wind. As soon as you said that, I was like, "Ooh, I gotta get in there."
No, that's fair. I mean, it's definitely not a strong suit for him, but it's still a very
competently
film,
directed.
you
You
know?
know, like I said, I mean, he shows his range with it. You know, he can do a solid heist movie.
Mm-hmm. He's a very capable director. You got anything else to add, Rex? Or
Yeah, I do like this movie. Definitely after watching his other ones, I like it. I still like it more than Mo Better Blues. Or Mo Better, sorry.
Mo Better.
Mo Better.
But
Mo Better, I think it is actually.
No, it is more better, but
but I like this one a lot even before I knew it was Spike Lee's movie. I've seen it a few times, but I just think it's one of those well thought out heist movies. So I mean, there's not much to say outside of what you guys did about it. But I do really like Denzel when he talks to his girl, because he'll be like throwing out commands and his girl calls, "Oh, hey, baby. Yeah, no, baby, it's okay. No, I got it. It's all right. Everything will be all right, baby. All right. I love you. All right. What do we got on this going on over here?" And he just jumps. It's just a really weird thing to throw in there, but I liked it. Also the thing about the money was cool. I don't know. It was a cool movie, but definitely his older ones are way better.
now that you know where he
now that
started.
I know, where it started, like it is odd that this is his movie, but without his commentary in the background, or there's a little bit of it, but it's just it leaves you wanting more when I think about it now compared to what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean that early stuff is written, produced, edited all by him, and his fingerprints are all over it.
Did he
And this
write
is
any
just
of
like
Inside Man? Or was
no,
that...
he just directed it. He
Oh,
just directed it. Yeah.
Okay, so that definitely makes sense then. But no, it was.
Yeah,
things are just different when you're a studio director.
Well, and you could tell he totally takes that studio approach. He doesn't really try to get like super artsy with this movie. The segue shot, as Danny calls it, is maybe the most artistic shot in the movie. You know, I my favorite part of the movie are the interview scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the most Spike Lee scenes in the movie. You know, they're gritty. The camera's a little like grainy, and I just love Denzel's interaction with that old lady. That's so adorable.
Man, they're laughing. Did you do it? Did you do
it? Well, and yeah, we talked about that with Tim Burton too. There gets to be a point where you start being that studio director, and then your voice is lost. Your style, your artistic vision, it's not the same. And modern Tim Burton stuff, you can't really tell it's Tim Burton. It's very studio formula. It's not really, it doesn't bleed that eccentricness that makes something your own when you're an independent filmmaker or you're making a movie independent from a major studio. So that's what's great about Spike Lee and why I wanted to cover him, because, he is very important to filmmaking, and he doesn't really get brought up enough. Everybody will always shout out Tarantino and Scorsese and the Coen brothers, Christopher Nolan, David Fincher. Those are the common names, and there are other slept-on directors, which Bont and I are going to throw them at you fellas. Don't even worry about that. But Spike Lee, I thought, really needed to be brought up because, again, just super important and doesn't get the love he deserves. So I think his legacy will be hopefully remembered in a great positive way, and I hope that the new movies that he does continue to kind of showcase what he's great at. And it seems like he's kind of hitting his stride again, getting a little bit back to form. Starting,
Yeah,
like,
I think with
Black...
Black Klansman, I mean, I think certain political events kind of reactivated that voice that was maybe lost, and Black Klansman was so good. I text both Danny and Aaron to watch Da Five Bloods as soon as they could, because that movie was so good, and like that's an emotional journey, and it's on Netflix, so super easily accessible. And I hope you guys like it. It's got a couple of oh fuck moments for you too, Danny.
What? I need me some oh fucks.
We're gonna have to get a recording of one of Danny's oh fucks so we can play it on the show one of these times.
I mean, shit. They're pretty good, especially if I have no idea what's gonna come. Oh man, it makes it even better. But there's even some movies that I've seen where I know what's gonna happen and I still do it.
Sometimes they just get you, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's gonna come. The name of Danny's sex tape.
Never gonna happen. Okay.
How do you two feel about his legacy? You know, like what do you take away from everything, Rex? I mean, you're new to it, so do you think he's going to have a long lasting effect, or do you think he's going to be one of those guys that's kind of forgotten in the next 10 to 20?
Honestly, I'm more surprised that his movies, especially his older ones, Summer of Sam, Do the Right Thing, She's Gotta Have It, aren't bigger like now. Because like, Brandon was saying, it mirrors so much social stuff going on right now. And, with all this turmoil with everything, I feel like those movies are more prevalent now than ever. Well, maybe not ever from when they were, but they're just really prevalent now and should be something people watch because it is an eye-opener and a thinker. But again, as far as Spike Lee, I don't know very much, so I'm speaking more out of my depth. But I would hope that these movies, especially these older ones, and I haven't seen any of these newer ones you guys have talked about, but I'll definitely try to hop on them. But from what I've seen of the older ones, I hope that he does get remembered, like because this type of thinking, and I didn't know that he wrote all the movies. I should have guessed
a good portion of them, yeah,
but
not all,
a good majority.
That even says even more, like that these are actual things he thinks and like can see like between the kind of like the lines, I guess to say, of society and stuff. So hopefully, these get more noticed and, more brought up and understood, because I think, it'd be good for a lot of people to see these movies and kind of take in the scope and see the parallels.
Yeah, I mean, I think a man directing She's Gotta Have It, and it also being his first movie, really shows how in touch he is with, many sorts of issues. It's pretty crazy to think that that's his first movie, and it's so thought-provoking.
Agreed. What about you, Danny? What is Danny Boy's take on the legacy of Spike Lee?
Oh, he's always going to be remembered. There's no question. I mean, regardless of how you feel about, his social input in a lot of his films, they're important.
Get a little closer to that mic, Danny.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me kiss it.
Just get a little
he's not going anywhere, and I think that he's always going to be one of those directors that people go back to and go, well, when Spike Lee did this, that kind of pushed this to happen, or, this, that, and the other. And he's made such iconic films. I mean, we talked about Malcolm X. We talked about Do the Right Thing. I mean, there's other ones we didn't even talk about that he did.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not a matter of will he, it's a matter of, like you were saying, Practical earlier, have we seen everything from him, or is he, just showing us the first chapter of what he can really do. And it depends on how many more films he does after this. I know he's filming one right now with ASAP Rocky. I don't know how I want to interpret that, but again, maybe the guy blows me away and he's a good actor. Who knows?
I just don't. We don't need a remake of that movie.
His last ventures into remakes weren't very good.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the Kurosawa one, I mean, just that one's gonna be way better no matter what. I promise you.
Right. Oh, for sure. So yeah,
and
I think
okay.
he'll always be remembered, though. He's a pretty essential filmmaker. just as a whole. Not even the fact that he's a black man, and that has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with capturing, social injustice and, the daily lifestyle of someone growing up back then in those neighborhoods. Like, he nails it. So yeah, he's definitely a pretty pivotal figure in film, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies and gents, that has been Spike Lee. If you have not watched any of his films, if you're just now finding out about him, or you're well versed, obviously just revisit those movies. Never forget, loving it, hating it, what are you rating it? Let us know. Throw us something on the socials and see where we're at.
That was smooth, by the way.
That was hella smooth. That was like butter on toast.
Hell yeah!
That almost got a oh fuck out of me.
Oh. As always, I'm your host, Practical, joined by
Danny
the buddies. Mm-hmm.
Danny Boy, come on, what are you doing, Rex?
Yeah, what the hell? He ain't the only one here with the butt.
I was giving a little pause. Sorry.
Okay, well,
Bye.
Bye from who?
I don't know who that was.
That was me, Brandon. Bye, guys.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
See you, buddy.
What was your guys' favorite film of the bunch, though? Before
you
we
pumped up
sign
my
off.
Jordans, man. Oh,
for me, it's Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing is my favorite.
Malcolm, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ty, Do the Right Thing, or Malcolm X. Probably Malcolm X, though, honestly.
I know what Rex's is, Inside Man.
No, it's Summer of Sam.
Summer of Sam, for sure.
You're right.
So sweet. The movie you haven't seen because you
Oh,
suck.
man, was I not paying attention? Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you suck.
I
Right.
was getting my mind blown this weekend. Leave me alone.
Whoa, mind blown.
Mind
Eagles.
blown, dude.
Hell yeah.
See that movie and you'll get your mind blown.
Oh, maybe it will. Maybe I'll just have to purchase it off of Amazon. Okay.
We'll
It's on
catch y'all
DVD.
next
It's like
week.
$10.
Yeah.
DVD,
Seriously.
$10. Yeah,
DVD,
sick.
$10.
DVD.
Catch you next week.
All right. See you later.
All right.
Bye.